Hey everybody, and welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. My name's Rebekah Coffelt, and I'm going to try to share a little bit of wisdom that I've learned over the past couple of months with you guys today. So initially when Pastor Dusty asked me to do this, my first thought was, what should I talk about? Well, actually, that's not true. My first thought was, how can I get out of this? But he wasn't really taking an I'll pray about it and get back to you for an answer. So here we are now. So I guess my second thought was, what should I talk about? And especially in this season, I wanted to talk about something that would just be uplifting and encouraging and, you know, just a good word that people could grab a hold of and just feel just good about life and where we are and what we're doing. And then I felt like God said, talk about grief. And I was like, no, not grief. How about let's talk about the importance of spending time with family and how important every day is, and to really, really cherish every day, because I could really preach a whole message on that. And that's good, and that's important, and like people need to hear that. And I felt like he again said, let's talk about grief. So God and I had a really honest conversation, as we often do, where I explained to him why I could not talk about grief. It's just too soon, and it's too raw, and I'll talk about that when it's healed. And it's a scar, and I can tell people how to get through it. I don't want to talk about it while I'm walking through it, because I don't have all the answers. And I felt like he said, that's exactly why I want you to talk about grief, because people everywhere today are grieving something, not the same thing I'm grieving, not in the same way, but people are grieving, and I want them to know that it's okay. That it's okay to talk about it when it's not all wrapped up and it's not a pretty picture and it's still open and it's still exposed, and that's why it's important. So today we're going to talk about grief a little bit. So if we're posting this on the church page, so I assume that most of you probably know me and know RJ, my husband, but just in case you're watching this and you don't, I'm just going to give you a little brief backstory about where we're coming from in our current season of grief. Excuse me. Sorry. Okay, so RJ and I have two beautiful daughters. Our oldest is Azalea, and she's 2.5, and she's a little spitfire. Anybody who knows her can definitely attest to that. And our youngest daughter, Adeline, would be 2 months old later on this week. Adeline was born on February 24th, and we got to spend 15 beautiful days with her. And then she went to live with Jesus. And early on in the pregnancy with Adeline, we knew that she was facing a lot of issues, and that it would be a miracle if she made it to birth and we got to see her at all alive. So we were so grateful and thankful that we got that time. And our journey with Adeline brought some of our highest highs and some of our lowest lows. And the grief, the grief now that we don't have her here with us. So that's where we are. We're at that part of the journey. We're still dealing with the grief, and then on top of that, all the coronavirus stuff going on today, which is just crazy. So let's look at a quick story, kind of where I feel like God was speaking to me in the Bible. So we're not going to read the whole It's John chapter 11. We're not going to read the whole chapter. I'm just going to kind of sum it up for you guys. In this story, Martha and Mary and Lazarus are some of Jesus's friends. It's a brother and his two sisters. They're some of Jesus's close friends, and Lazarus gets sick. And he's dying, and they send for Jesus, and Jesus doesn't come right away. Jesus delays. And so when Jesus finally makes his way to the town that they're in, Lazarus is dead, and he has been in the tomb for 4 days. And so Martha goes out to him and questions where he was and why he didn't come. And then later on in the story, Mary goes out, and it says here in verse 33, when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her weeping, he groaned in his spirit and was troubled. And then later on in verse 35, it says that Jesus wept. So my point here with this is that, yes, Jesus knew the plan. Later on in the story, Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead, and he lives again. And Jesus knew that was going to happen. But in that moment, he felt the pain that Mary was feeling and that Martha was feeling, and he wept. And he didn't just tear up, you guys. Like, he wept, like ugly cried, like I'm doing right now. But he felt the full weight of that loss, even though he knew, even if Lazarus wasn't raised from the dead later on in the story, he knew the promise of heaven and the promise of forever. But the Bible says in 1 Peter that he cares. We can cast our cares on him because he cares for us. So he cares about the things that we care about. So even if it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, even if you're grieving something small and it seems insignificant up against what other people are grieving, he cares. He cares about those things because he so loves us. The things that hurt us hurt him. So I think a lot of times as Christians, we, and I know I'm so guilty of this too. We want to fix it, we want to fix when someone's hurting, fix those grief moments. So, I'm going to refer to it as the yeah, but. So, yes, we lost Adeline, but we have the promise of eternity with her, and that's awesome, and I can't wait to see her again. But right now, it hurts. And right now, I'm grieving this. And that's okay. That's okay. And it's not even just okay, it's healthy. And it's a necessary process for there to be healing, and for there to be growth, and for there to be restoration. So let me tell you a little story. I mean, I guess not really so much a story, just an event that happened. So we had been home from the hospital after losing Adeline for just maybe a week or so, and all of this craziness corona stuff happened. And a Facebook friend of mine who's pregnant posted, it was like a post and share post, and it was saying, like, don't forget about your pregnant friends, because this is a really hard time for them too, because of what the hospitals are doing. Giving birth doesn't look like what it normally looks like. Lots of moms were going to have masks on the first time they held their baby, and be separate in that way, and they weren't letting a lot of the fathers in for deliveries, and if your baby had to go to the NICU, you weren't permitted to go over there. And I was reading that girl's post, and immediately I started doing that Christian thing, that yeah, but I even pulled up the thing and was about to start typing, not in a mean or a like condemning way, but just what I thought I was doing was just reminding her that yes, those things are true, but you'll get to bring your baby home, and there will be a day that you get to hold your baby without a mask. And I immediately felt convicted on that, and I felt like God said, that's what's most important. That's the biggest thing going on in her world right now, and I care about that. And she's grieving those things, and I care about that, and I'm grieving those things with her. So then I started to think about all of the people who are grieving stuff, from the mom who's grieving those big senior moments with her child, to the stay-at-home mom who's grieving those rare coffee dates that she would get with friends, to the people grieving the loss of their jobs, or the loss of loved ones, or whatever that may look like. And just in this pandemic, in this time, just the weight of everybody is grieving something. And to those people, to each individual person, that's the biggest thing going on in their world, the biggest loss going on in their world. And that's important too. And God cares about those things too. So I just wanted to encourage you guys that it's okay. It's okay to feel grief about things, and it's not any less important to you in your life. Whatever it is that you're grieving, and God cares about those things too. Lastly, like, I'm not saying just to crawl down in your pit of despair and just to, continue to just wallow in it. Like, that's not proper grieving or healing. In 1 Thessalonians, it says, we do not grieve as those who have no hope. So we have a hope. We've got a hope of eternity. We've got a hope that this will all be over. We've got a hope that we get our jobs back, or that we will get to see our children graduate, or our nieces or our nephews, or we will get to see our elderly parents again. We have hope that those things will come. So we don't grieve as if there's no hope. But it is okay to grieve. It is okay to feel the weight of what's going on, and know that He cares for the things that we care for, and that sometimes the best thing that we can do is just weep with somebody, because it's a loss, and that's okay. And we see Jesus' example, that's what He did, and we don't have to always try to fix it. It doesn't always have to look pretty and perfect before we can talk about it. But so yeah, that's just one of the many, many things that I feel like God has been showing me in this season. And I'm trying to do a better job at giving people the respect that they deserve in their thing that they're grieving. Whether it's not the biggest thing going on to me, or I think, well, that's not that big of a deal. Yeah, you're going to miss this or that, but you still have, I don't want to do that. I just want to be able to do what Jesus did and weep with people, because it's a loss, and I want to care about the things that other people care about, because I care for them. So I think that's pretty much all that I had for today. Thank y'all for bearing with me. It's longer than it was supposed to be, but I just pray that you hear what I'm saying and take this with you, and have a great, blessed week.